Yep, perfect.
Well, thank you for that kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Jeff Rumburg. Some of you I know, but I don't know all of you, so I'd like to welcome you to my discussion today on measuring and managing the customer experience. And specifically, one of the things we're going to do is go through and create a customer experience scorecard. So once again, welcome everyone. Thank you for having me. It's always an honor and a pleasure to present for SDI. MetricNet, as some of you know, has a long-standing friendship and business relationship with SDI, and I'm always pleased and honored to be able to present at their events. Now, as many of you know, MetricNet does quite a bit of benchmarking in this industry. We do benchmarking for service desks, for desktop support, for field services, and other technical service and support organizations. And for more than 3 decades, we have been tracking customer satisfaction when it comes to IT service and support. Yet we began to realize a number of years ago that customer satisfaction is a very transactional metric, and it doesn't really fully capture what the customer experiences when they interact with service and support, whether it's a level 1 service desk, a desktop support organization, field services, or otherwise. So we began thinking very holistically about how the customer interacts with service and support and how they experience service and support. And we realized that there was a much broader discipline of customer experience, a much more holistic way of viewing the way the customer experiences service and support. And it's not just transactional. It's not just how you interact with the customer on a given contact in chat or voice through email, walk-up, SMS, self-help, self-service, or any other channel that you interact with them through. And it's not just a single transaction. It covers the lifetime of experience that the customer has with you. And that can span, in some cases, decades. So you have to think of customer experience as being this broader, holistic concept and a relationship that you build with the customer over a long period of time. So not transactional, not a sprint, but rather a long-term relationship, a marathon, something that you build up over time based on trust, based on competency, based on speed of response, based on speed of resolution, based on empathy, based on the quality of the communication, and based on competency is measured by things like first contact and first level resolution rate. So there are some metrics that help us understand how you're doing with the customer experience. Now, no set of metrics is going to tell us the whole story. However, a single metric isn't going to come anywhere close to telling us about the customer experience. So what we've developed at MetricNet is a way of thinking about the customer experience through their satisfaction on given transactions, the level of effort that they have to expend in working with you. That's called the customer effort score. The net promoter score, are they loyal to you? Are they willing to promote you to friends and family, for example? And then we can roll these together into a single overall measure of the experience. We call that the CX, or the customer experience scorecard. Now we know some of the underlying drivers of these things: satisfaction, effort, and net promoter score. And they are, among others, first contact and first level resolution rate. Those are speed indicators. If you're resolving on first contact, you're resolving quickly. If you're resolving at first level, you're not pushing the customer to the right to field services or desktop support, for example, or vendor support or level 3 IT support. Omni-channel support. In other words, on any given interaction, the customer can interact with you not just in multiple channels, but you don't lose their history when they go, say, from SMS to voice to email to web submit. So a customer might submit a request through SMS, and then they might get a call back from you, a voice transaction. They might later chat with you. That would be a multi-channel interaction, but it becomes an omni-channel interaction if the customer's history follows them from one channel to another. They don't have to repeat everything when they go from SMS to voice to chat to email to web, or even to self-help. So omni-channel is a broader concept than multi-channel. Almost every support organization is now multi-channel, but to be omni-channel, the customer needs to be able to interact with you through multiple channels in a single interaction or a single ticket, for example. Job satisfaction. This is a surprising one to many people, but it turns out that the old cliche, happy agent equals happy customer, turns out to be empirically true. When we take thousands of data points and we regress agent or technician job satisfaction versus customer satisfaction, there's a strong correlation. Moreover, we know it's a cause and effect relationship. So high levels of job satisfaction do translate into high levels of customer satisfaction. So we have to think of this as one of the key drivers of the customer experience. Job satisfaction matters because it does drive a key part of the customer experience. And then of course, customers are sensitive to speed, the speed of response and the speed of resolution. So we know that these are some of the key drivers of these metrics that allow us to measure the customer experience. Why do we care about this? Well, because it matters. It changes outcomes. Customer enthusiasm, a broader concept than customer satisfaction. Customer enthusiasm or delighted customers are those that want to do business with you. Your cost per ticket and total cost of ownership actually decreases as the customer experience improves. We can also demonstrate this empirically with benchmarking data. Customer effort goes down if it's easy to do business with you, easy to find support, quick resolution times, high quality resolutions. That equates to low effort. Net promoter is a loyalty metric, scale of 0 to 10. How likely are you to promote this service to friends and family? You're putting your own credibility on the line there. So it's a different metric than either customer effort or customer satisfaction. And then, as I mentioned, we roll these together into a single overall measure, the customer experience. So let's turn this kind of 90 degrees clockwise and think about the underlying drivers of the customer experience at the very bottom of this hierarchy. These drivers are your first contact resolution rate. That's a competency metric. Customers care a lot about competency. First level resolution rate. In other words, you're not shifting the customer to the right unnecessarily. Omni-channel capabilities, that is multi-channel, but the customer can seamlessly interact through multiple channels on a given transaction, on a given ticket. Job satisfaction, as I mentioned, is a key driver of customer satisfaction, and then speed of response, speed of resolution. These roll up into the CX metrics. They all impact CSAT, customer effort, net promoter, and the scorecard, which rolls together customer satisfaction, customer effort, and net promoter. Ultimately, this has to make a difference in our cost and in our customer enthusiasm. This is the yin and yang of any service and support organization. Are you lower cost than average? And is the customer enthusiasm higher than you typically see in the industry? Think of cost per ticket as our measure of efficiency and customer enthusiasm as our measure of effectiveness. We don't do these things out of the goodness of our heart just to drive high levels of customer enthusiasm and see our costs go through the roof. No, this actually has a positive impact on our total cost of ownership and our cost per ticket as well. So this is a win for everybody. Service and support gets better enthusiasm scores, better customer experience scores, and lower costs per ticket and total cost of ownership, and the customer has a better experience overall. If there ever was a win-win box, this is it. Focusing on the customer experience, driving it as high as possible is beneficial not only for the customer, but it's beneficial for the bottom line of the support organization. So we've talked about the key drivers of the customer experience and ways we can measure the customer experience. We can measure it by looking at satisfaction and customer effort and net promoter score. I want to be clear though that there's no perfect way to measure the customer experience. We believe though that these three measures in combination give us a very good bird's eye view, a 360-degree view of the customer experience. So how do we combine these into a single overall measure of the customer experience? We use something called the customer experience scorecard, which I'm showing you here on page 6. Now in this simple scorecard, the metrics that make up the scorecard are customer satisfaction, this is the far left-hand column, customer effort score, net promoter score, and we put a 1/3 weighting on each of those. Now I want to be clear that this is a very flexible framework. You can add metrics to this, you can take metrics away from it, you can change the metrics in this. Use the metrics that you feel most comfortable with and that you have the most accessibility to. If you're not tracking NPS, of course, you're not going to have NPS in your customer experience scorecard. If you're not tracking customer effort score, you're not going to have that metric in your customer experience scorecard. So this is just for illustrative purposes, and I would encourage you to make this your own, modify it, and customize it. You can put any metrics you want in it. You can put any weightings you want on them. So please note that this is just for illustrative purposes. Then you would typically in the third and fourth columns from the left show the worst performance and the best performance. So these represent performance ranges that you would typically see. This could be benchmarking data, or you can simply ask yourself, in the worst case scenario, what would our performance look like? And in the best case scenario, what would our performance look like? And that's what we're showing here in these performance ranges. Your actual performance on a monthly basis would go in the third column from the right. So this does represent performance over a certain period of time, typically 1 month, but it could be 1 quarter or even a longer period of time. But generally, most organizations will measure the customer experience on a monthly basis. So the actual performance for customer satisfaction, customer effort, and net promoter score would go in the third column from the right. And then we calculate a metric score using the interpolation formula down in step 5. Simple formula, worst case minus your actual performance, will be the numerator, and the denominator is the range, which is worst case minus best case. And that will give you a score that ranges from 0 to 100%. The higher scores in this example, customer satisfaction, the metric score is 78%. The net promoter score, metric score is 70.5%. Those are your strengths. And then the lower scores, in this case, customer effort at 52.5, those are your less impressive scores. Those are the scores where you're not doing as well. Now, the final step in creating the overall customer experience score is to multiply each metric score by the metric weighting to get a balanced score in the far right column. And when we add that together, we get a single overall measure of the customer experience. Now think about what we've done here. We've taken 3 disparate metrics, CSAT, customer effort, net promoter, and we've rolled them together to create this single overall measure, 66.9%. And if we're willing to update that on a monthly or quarterly basis, hopefully we get a trend that looks like this. This is real data from one of our clients. The blue bars represent the monthly scores, and the green background represents the trailing 12-month average. So by measuring this on a monthly basis, we can get a feel for whether or not we're trending in the right direction with customer experience. Now, you can download a scorecard template at this URL, and I'm going to give you a demonstration of this momentarily. You can download this at the URL that is shown here, metricnet.com/SDICX, and the password is case sensitive, attendee all uppercase. So what I'm going to do is shift screens here, and I'm going to go into that scorecard and show you how it works. This shows the actual metrics that we were just looking at. And we can populate future months. We can populate the month of January, February, March, April, May. I just put some data in here for illustrative purposes. And each month we will get an updated customer experience score over here in the lower right-hand corner. And by the way, again, you can download this template. As we continue moving to the right, you can see that the score will change. I've just put some plug figures in here to illustrate this for you, but it's quite simple to update this column F with 3 metrics or however many customer experience metrics you are tracking. And then we got a tab in here that will give you the overall trend. And so we can see that our customer experience score in the month of January, way over here, was 68.8%. Month of February, it increased quite a bit, went to 76.3. You never go straight up or straight down on your customer experience score. But in the long run, what you're looking for is an upward trend, which is what I'm showing here. Once again, this is made up data, but it's meant to illustrate the following point. Number 1, the customer experience score is going to tell you how you're performing for a given period of time, a month or a quarter. If you track this over time, you can get the trend in how your customer experience score is getting better or worse over time, and you can take the actions that are necessary to either continue improving your customer experience score or, as the case might be, to take steps to improve your customer experience score and keep it moving in the right direction if it's moving in a downward direction. So I would encourage you to download that, play with it, experiment with it. As I said, make it your own. You can change the metrics here. You can add more metrics. You can take away metrics. You can create your own metrics. You can put your own weights in here. Of course, those weights have to add to 100%. but the template is fairly straightforward. So I do want to encourage you to download that and spend some time with that. Finally, I want to leave you, before I take some questions, with this important set of data, something that I've presented before. Some of you may have seen this before, but it turns out that customer satisfaction with, or customer experience with service and support drives customer satisfaction with all of IT. Even though service and support, level 1 service desk and desktop support represent only 4% of total IT spending, it drives the vast majority of customer satisfaction with all of IT. So what we're showing here is the response to a question, what drives your satisfaction with IT? It was a multiple choice question, more than 1,000 organizations participated in this. And the question that we asked is, what drives your satisfaction with all of IT? And we gave them multiple choices, almost 20 different choices. We said, pick the top 3. That's why these numbers add to more than 100%. And that's all. And we're also not showing all the responses. But here's the profound insight, is that the majority of customer satisfaction is driven by interactions with the service desk and desktop support. This makes sense if you think about it, because that's where customers interact with IT. They don't hang out in the NOC, they don't hang out with the developers, but they do have frequent interactions with service and support. Your average customer is going to contact the level 1 service desk 1.1 to 1.2 times per month, and they're going to contact desktop support approximately 0.5 or 0.6 times per month. So that's 1.5 to 1.7 touches per month, or 18 to 20 touches per year. So naturally, customer interactions with service and support have a dramatic influence on their perception of IT overall. So there's huge leverage here in terms of driving customer satisfaction, not just with service and support, but driving customer satisfaction and customer enthusiasm and the customer experience with IT overall. So with that, I'd be more than happy to take any questions that you might have.
So it looks like we don't have any questions at the moment, but Gary has asked if you could remind us of the link and the password to the scorecard.
Yeah, so metricnet.com/SDICX, and then all caps for the password, attendee.
Okay, brilliant. If anyone doesn't have any questions after today's event, is there a best place to reach you on?
Yes, they can reach MetricNet at my email address. It's actually, and by the way, you can download today's presentation and you'll find our contact information in there, info@metricnet.com. That will reach us. Our phone number is here. This is a North American phone number. You can reach us there as well, or you can email me personally at jeffr, Jeffr, @metricnet.com.
Okay, we have had just a quick question from Peter. He says, did you say a 4% spend on service desks in IT budgets?
Not just service desk, but when we look at all of IT service and support, the dedicated personnel for IT service and support, including level 1 service desk, the self-help, self-service portal, field services, and desktop support. It does not include vendor support, and it does not include level 3 IT support. So when we look at the enterprise dedicated personnel that are doing support all the way from self-help, self-service to level 1 desktop support and field services, that represents 4% of total IT spending globally. Now the number will vary from that, from a low of about 2.5% to a high of 8 or 9%. But on average, IT service and support represents about 4% of total IT spending. So it's a high leverage activity in that it can create economic value, dramatic economic value through shift left, through channel mix, and by returning productivity to end users. But it also, as I showed you on that one slide, is the key to driving high levels of customer satisfaction with all of IT. So although it represents a relatively small part of the total IT spend budget, it has a disproportionate influence on customer satisfaction with all of IT.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Roger has asked, with regards to the best and worst case performance range, is that the single worst and single best score for the time period, so month to month? And if so, how does this account for outliers that might skew average performance?
Well, you want to look at benchmarking data when you're looking at worst case, best case. Now, in the case of customer effort score, the range on that is 1 to 5, 1 being low effort, 5 being high effort. Net promoter ranges from -100 to 100. So those are just definitional on customer effort and net promoter score. Around customer satisfaction, you want to ask yourself, what does the industry look like in terms of best score, worst score? Very rarely do we find scores below 40% on customer satisfaction, and of course you can't exceed 100%. Outliers, I have mixed feelings about outliers because some people assume that an outlier is a bad data point, but that's not necessarily the case. An outlier can simply be a data point that is unusual and more than 2 standard deviations away from the norm. So we don't exclude outliers, and we believe that outliers, assuming that they're accurate data, they should remain in the data set when you're doing any calculation, whether it's customer satisfaction, customer effort, net promoter score. They simply represent, assuming that the data is accurate, data that's more than 2 standard deviations away from the norm, and they should not be excluded from the data set.
Yeah, I think context is very important when it comes to outliers as well. Like if there's a specific reason why there is an outlier, it's important to include the context of that going forward.
Agreed. There are oftentimes external impacts, if you will, exogenous effects that there could be an acquisition, there could be the implementation of new technology. There are things that happen in the environment that can influence the customer experience temporarily. And they do provide some context, as you point out, and potentially an explanation, but you never want to turn it into a rationalization of a customer experience being less than what it should be. So explanation is good, rationalization, for poor performance or performance that's not as good as you'd like it to be is generally not a good thing. So I agree with context and explanation, but stay away from rationalization is generally my advice.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today, Jeff.
My pleasure. It was an honor to be here. Thank you, everybody, for listening to my presentation.
Thanks. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much. You too.
Okay, next up, we'll hear from Sammy from Happy Signals, who will talk about why end user experience should be the key performance indicator for IT quality and how to start using experience level agreements. How are you today, Sammy?
Very good, thank you.
Brilliant.